And there's a reason why Jesus didn't go to the synagogue leader or whoever and say, hey, this isn't right for you.
Yeah.
There's a reason he braided a whip on a hilltop where everyone
And
could
made
see
it
him.
a,
Yeah, he made
yeah,
it a scene. He made a
yeah,
scene, and he went in there and he turned all the tables over. There's money flying everywhere, probably feathers everywhere. Like, he made a mess of things in
yeah,
order to set things right in a public way. So I think he does that through offense sometimes. Like, he
yeah,
will use an offense in our life, right or wrong, doesn't matter. He'll use an offense in our life to break up the hard ground in our heart, to plant a
yeah.
seed that will bring you and your family life. I yelled at Jack the other day because he was climbing on like the outside of like at an actual park, like,
Uh-huh.
but like on the roof.
Oh,
And I was like, we don't have health insurance, get down from there. Like, at least wait until we can pay for a cast before
right.
breaking your arm.
We're still saving. Well, healthcare in America, dude, like, even if you have health insurance, it's disgusting
Yeah,
how
well,
much out of
that's,
pocket you have to pay.
and then if you get health insurance through the government, which we've had several times, we've done access or whatever,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, first of all, they own a part of you. Like, they would call us literally like every couple of weeks, hey, take your child in for their 1 year, take your child in for their shot. Like, you're like, they would like threaten me, like, your insurance is gonna do this or that if you
Oh,
don't do that.
jeez.
And I was like, they can't do that. Like, they can't. I take my kid to the doctor when they're sick. Like,
Yeah.
and then I have so many of them, they would put us in like, they
Rotating
automatically get
call.
notified. Yeah. And then anyway, yeah, I don't like the government being that involved in my life.
Hmm. Well, would you say that you got offended by them trying to bless
No,
you with the health
offended.
insurance?
No, gosh. I hey, it,
I'm kidding.
the government is not your friend. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Sorry, I'm getting a little uh my independent voting card is about to come out. Boom. Just kidding. Um yeah, so offense. That's an interesting topic that you randomly just brought up for no reason.
Just
Well, okay,
random.
so I mean, I've recently, I mean, obviously I've been offended before. Everyone's been offended before, but recently I've been offended. And it wasn't even for like a dumb reason. Like, if there's like, you can be offended for
Valid
legitimate,
reasons.
valid reasons, but still the offense takes from you. It doesn't help you in any way, shape, or form. Like,
Yeah.
even if like, I think the offense is worse when it's from someone that you love and respect
Mm-hmm.
and that is in your life. Like, a part of you wants to kind of revolt and like, well, fine, like, if you're gonna have that kind of character that wasn't right, I'm gonna go somewhere else. But you're robbing from yourself, and there's a blessing in it. There's a blessing behind it if you stick it out, if you stick it through.
Right.
And Jesus, I mean, he gives us example after example after example. People think Jesus was nice. Jesus isn't nice, guys. I mean, he's our comforter. When you're down and out, he's not going to kick you. But there are examples in the Bible where he tests people and they have the choice whether they're going to be offended or whether they're going to be blessed.
Right.
So, and I'm still figuring this out because I don't know the spiritual significance of all these interactions,
Yeah.
but I do know what I would feel like doing if these things happened. And I want to talk about the first one, which is the title of the podcast: When Jesus Spits in Your Face.
Are you gonna take it as an offense or as you are being blessed?
Yeah, I mean, like, you would never think Jesus would ever do that, spit
Right.
in someone's face. But yeah, he actually did spit in someone's face.
Yeah.
There's this blind guy. Which one? Which story is
So
that?
it's Mark 8:22 through 26. So if we here, so it's a blind man at Beth Bethsaida. Did I say that right? Bethsaida?
I have no idea, but it sounds right.
Beth
I think you did a pretty good job.
Bethsaida. I'm not sure. So sorry. But
No,
it said
it's some ancient place.
they came to Bethsaida, I think. But and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked, "Do you see anything?" He looked up and said, "I see people. They look like trees walking around." Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. Jesus sent him home, saying, "Don't even go into the village."
Yeah, so yeah, he spit in a dude's eyes. Like
Yeah.
that's I mean, imagine. And like that's gross to us now, but to
Back
them
then,
it
it was
was
like very
even
disrespectful,
yeah, it
wasn't
was
it?
very disrespectful to spit in someone's face.
Yeah.
So this guy could have been offended and been like, "You know what? I'm going back to my village or whatever." But no, he stuck it out and he got his blessing. And there's another story where Jesus spits in the mud
Mhm.
and or he spits in the dirt, he makes mud and he puts it on a blind guy's eyes
Yeah, that's
and
John
heals him
9.
that. Yeah. So there's example after example. That's just with spit. There's other examples. Like one time he called this lady a dog. She's a Canaanite woman, and she came to Jesus and she was like following him and his disciples, and she was begging him, "Please heal my daughter, please heal my daughter, please heal my daughter." And Jesus was straight up ignoring her, like he wasn't even
Yeah.
acknowledging her existence. Finally, the disciples were like,
Send her away.
"Jesus."
Well, at first he said Jesus didn't answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, because she keeps crying out after us." And then
Right.
he answered, he said, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." Then the woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the
It
dogs."
is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. He insinuated that in comparison, her and her people were dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds racist.
And then, yeah, right?
But it's not, because it was Jesus who said it, and Jesus is not racist. So,
Yep. And then she almost like not negotiated with him, right? But tried to reason with him and it's like, "Yes, it is." She said, "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table."
right. So she could have been offended and been like, "What did you just say to me?"
Right.
And instead, and she would have missed out her blessing, her daughter would have stayed sick. But instead, she said, "Even the dogs can eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." Now, Jesus wasn't saying he didn't believe that the Canaanite people were like dogs. Okay. He was doing something. He was showing his disciples something. Like, if you can choose to overlook and overcome an offense, then there is a blessing there for you that will blow your mind. But you have to choose to forgive
Yeah.
and choose to believe, like, over your offense. Like, I think sometimes people will be like, "I forgive you, but I don't want to be your friend anymore," or
Mm.
"I'm not going to be around you anymore." Boundaries are important, but this is different.
Right.
Everyone, every single person that you will ever be close to will offend you. This is
Yeah.
not AI relationships, okay? Artificial intelligence that are just going to tell you what you want to hear
Right.
and be programmed to say the right things all the time. That's not who we are. That's not who God created us to be. He created us to live in community with each other, to be offended by each other, and to
Mhm.
forgive each other and
Yeah.
stay united in the process, right?
Yep. And I think that's the hardest part, is staying united through that process.
Mm,
So much time, like, or so many times society is like, if they do you wrong, like, cut them off, right? An
right.
eye for an eye,
Cancel
which
culture. That's cancel culture.
100%,
Yeah.
like, oh, they said something wrong. They didn't say it quite the right way. Like, no, forget them, cut them off. They're dead to me. And
Right, and as
that's,
election season, we're about to go into election season
yeah,
for 2024. I think it's really important for us all to remember this. Like, remember that the battle that we are fighting is not against each other.
right.
We're not fighting with
Flesh and blood.
with actual weapons against each other. Okay, we are in the body of Christ to love each other past our differences, even if they're wrong.
Right.
Like, even if especially if they're wrong, like,
Yeah.
you forgive people when you think that they're wrong or they hurt their feelings and they didn't mean to or whatever.
Because we expect people to do that for us.
Right. Right.
Because we're thinking of, well, I didn't mean it that way, or, well, if they like, no, they knew what I meant, when in reality it's like, you know what you meant. You
Well,
know that it wasn't meant in a way that wasn't going to offend someone. So if you expect them to just be okay with it and forgive it, move on, and be like, "Oh, well, you know what I meant. Oh, you know I didn't mean it like that." Well, guess what? Like, if you expect that for you, you need to do that to other people.
like Pastor Cal said today, you judge other people on
On
their
their
actions,
actions,
but you judge yourself on your intentions
motives.
or your
Mhm.
motives. But yeah, so you say, "Oh, they did this, but I meant it this way."
Right.
So we need to give other people the same grace that we want
100%.
ourselves. And you know what's crazy is, if we don't give other people the same grace that we want them to give us, we're not going to give ourselves that same grace.
Yeah.
And you're going to harbor a lot of self-hatred and a lot of shame if you're an unforgiving person. That
And forgiveness just eats at your heart, it eats at your core.
unforgiveness, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Not forgiveness. Forgiveness helps to restore and flourish your heart, but unforgiveness, literally, you'll just rot away. You know, if you think about it in different situations in your life, and I think back in situations in my life, um, you know, and you guys, right? Like your life, how many times, oh,
Sorry, I don't know
gonna
what this car's
get
doing.
whiplash over here. But actually, it's unforgiveness gives you emotional whiplash all the time because you're
See, I
miserable,
did that on
right?
purpose.
Like, see, look at
Exactly.
that,
Exactly.
girl. But you know, you're just constantly in limbo, and then you know you have that pit in your stomach all the time, and you're just walking around just like man, miserable, just man, forget that person, or you just see through a different lens of um negativity just in
Hmm.
general, and then
Yeah.
it just eats away at every different aspect of your life, your job, the way you parent, the way you're a friend, the way that
Yeah.
you're a sister, the way that you're, you know, a spouse, and you just look through that lens of unforgiveness and it literally bleeds into every area in your life
Right.
versus having the focus on forgiveness, and then that's going to bleed into every area of your life,
Right.
and then it's going to be nothing but positivity
Right.
because you're
So
going to walk
so
around being
getting over your
peaceful.
fence and looking past it with that specific person can lead to spiritual breakthrough, to
Hmm.
miracles, to
Well, it's like
revelation,
the
to
woman at the well.
purpose. The woman by the well, basically, Jesus was like calling her out on all of it. Like he was spilling the
He
tea.
said, "Why don't you go tell your husband?" She said, "I don't have a husband." He said, "I know, you've had 5. And in fact, the man that you're with now is not your husband." And she said, "Oh, wow, you really are a prophet,
She's like,
right?"
who have you been talking to?
Exactly. And so instead of being offended, she was the first woman to go and share Jesus with her people.
Yeah, she told her whole village, hey, I found the Messiah.
Yeah,
I found him.
I
I
found
found
him.
him.
He called me out on my crap, and
That
he
was
still
actually
loves
my
me.
Devo today.
Really?
Yeah, and then the village comes and they hear Jesus and they say, now we believe because we've heard him for ourselves, not just because of what you told us. But I thought it was so awesome that, I mean, she's kind of spicy to begin with. Like you can tell the
Right.
interaction. She's a little
Yeah,
like
because at first she was
sassy,
like, "I'm
like,
not supposed to talk to you. Like, why are you at my
why are you
well?"
talking to me? Because she's a Samaritan woman.
Yeah.
And first of all, a man talking to a woman in that culture was already taboo, but if you didn't know them. But second of all, a Samaritan woman and a Jewish man talking to each other,
They
that
did
was
not get
really
along.
taboo. Right. Right. So anyway, Jesus doesn't care about taboos. He doesn't care about hurting your feelings if that's how he gets to your heart.
Right.
And I think sometimes we get to choose. Like under the surgeon's knife, when we need surgery, we have to choose to allow ourselves to be cut by the surgeon in order to be healed by him.
Mm-hmm.
But if you, you know, resist and revolt and rebel and get offended and run away and get infected, then you're choosing the offense over the miracle.
Yeah.
And, you know, even Peter, like one day Jesus is, you know, praising Peter for saying, you know, Jesus asked Peter, who do you think I am? And Peter said, you're the Messiah. And Jesus is pretty much applauding him for saying that, for getting that revelation from the Holy Spirit. And then the next moment, Jesus is telling them, I'm going to die. They're going to crucify me. And Peter corrects
Peter
Jesus.
said, "There's no way that's
He's like,
never going to happen to you.
he's like, cancel, cancel. Stop speaking those negative
Stop
words.
talking like that about
Right,
yourself.
right, exactly.
You're not going anywhere." He's
And
like,
Jesus straight up says, get thee behind me, Satan. When was the last time your pastor said that to you? Like, imagine
I
Jesus
would
saying that to
cry.
you.
I would
Yeah,
literally cry.
seriously. Imagine Jesus himself saying, get thee behind me, Satan to you. Oh, just that thought, like, makes me want to cry.
Crushed.
But
Crumbled.
who was the one that during, like, I forget what they call it, the day of Pentecost, after Jesus died, resurrected, and went to heaven, and sent his Holy Spirit down, he was the one, Peter was the one that was preaching and getting
Yeah.
thousands of people saved. So get past the offense to get to the miracle, to get to the blessing, to get to the calling, and to be sent, just like the woman
Right.
at the well was sent. um I'm trying to think of any other times. I mean, Jesus braided a whip and went into the temple and like flipped over tables. That's
As
where
they
they
were
get the
selling
tables are
things.
turned. Yeah, they were selling things. They turned the house of God into, and we see a lot of that. We see a lot of that today. They turned the house of God into something that it was never purposed to be.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I struggle at times, you know, is especially with today's church, right? America church. And like there was this one church that I had tried out and gone to before I started going to CFTN, and I walked in, and it was just as I was coming back into my walk with Christ. And I walk in, and they have, the cafe, but not only just a cafe, they have like all these tables set up to where you can sit, and it was like a food cafe, it was insane. And then they had other tables set out to where you could buy the devotionals that they were doing, and I really struggle with that. Because I walked in, I was like, would Jesus flip all these tables? Like, is this correct? Is it not? And then I had to check myself. I'm like, am I being a Pharisee? I'm like, but I mean, granted, I've been out of the church for 10 years, so maybe things have changed, but also, like, if it's not, if it's true, it's not new, right? Or, if it's new, it's not
Right.
true. And so I, I, I always internally struggle, with
Where's the
that.
line? Like, where's the
Yes.
line? Because there's like our cafe at church, the money that they get
Goes
goes
to missions.
100%, yeah, to missions. It
Mm-hmm.
goes to missions, so that's awesome. So it's just difficult to know where the line is between building the kingdom and establishing a culture that is selfish or like I feel like the reason why them selling um it says you turned my father's house into a den of thieves.
Right.
So I think that when we are taking advantage of people,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what they would do, they would sell, I think they would sell like
I think it was like,
pigeons and
yeah,
stuff for
bird.
sacrifice. So I
Mm,
think they were using religion to make money and to glorify their own estate, their own selves. I
wow.
mean, and again, I could be wrong about that, but that's just what I took away. So there's things like, there's stories when people do choose the offense
Yeah.
over the blessing and they miss out on the blessing. Like this one church, they had a men's conference,
Mm-hmm.
and at this men conference, it was a mega church, huge men's conference. You guys have probably heard the story. It was kind of a big deal, but they had this like pole erected in the church, and this guy come and dance with his shirt off around the pole, climb the pole, put a sword in his mouth, like swallow the sword or whatever. And turns out he was like an ex stripper, like he would strip at gay places and straight places or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But it was like a very like, what are you
What was the
thinking
purpose of,
moment.
what was the,
Well, it was the title of the conference was called like Strong Men or something. So they were trying to show a strength, but this guy like ripped his shirt off and it was very
I
gay. It was
shouldn't have
just very
laughed, but
gay.
like,
Yeah, so some people were like laughing and stuff.
I'm sorry. I'm just picturing like the the
Right.
theme of
A
the
guy
conflict,
pole
like
dancing in a church. Like seriously, ripping his shirt off,
like
that's supposed to be masculine? Like somebody needs to get fired. No, I'm just kidding. But
I mean, granted, I've heard it does take a lot of upper body strength to
oh
pole dance,
yeah. I
but
mean, and he was
also
a
like,
muscular dude, but it
but like
was
you can
not a
use so
straight
many different
thing.
examples of showing strength. Like they're
Right.
growing up at the church,
Do an arm wrestling competition. No, I'm just
right?
kidding.
Well, there were these like strong men that would come, right? And this one time, and they had like this metal pole basically, and they
Hmm.
like went like this and bent it, so it kind of looked like the
Yeah.
Jesus fish.
Yeah.
And what's funny is after my dad passed, we were at the house cleaning things out, and Maddie, my little sister, found it. She goes, "I remember this. I was up on the stage." So I think she ended up taking it, but like that would be an appropriate show of strength,
Right,
right? Like
right.
I'm just
So it was
wow.
very extra and not in a good way. And then the pastor, I forget his name, Driscoll or something, and he's kind of a controversial pastor who kind of says some things that are like, yeah, that's not
Hmm.
quite right. He's very brash, but some of the
Huh.
things he says are like on point, honestly. But
Yeah.
he's kind of like a, what do you call it? What's that guy in the wilderness that wore all the hair and ate the locusts and stuff and just said
John the
crazy
Baptist?
things? Yeah, John the Baptist type, kind of a crazy kind of guy that you're like, I'm not sure about you, but you definitely don't care about what other people think. So I kind of want to listen to more of what you have to say because I trust people like that
Right.
because they're not going to be bought, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, this Driscoll guy goes up there because he's scheduled to preach, right? I think it's like the next day of the conference.
Mhm.
And he says, guys, what happened yesterday was not right. That guy,
Hmm.
like that, and as he's saying this, the guy who organized everything, he's like, "You're out of line, Driscoll. Like, get off the stage. Like, you're done. You're done." So the guy gets off, and he's like, "Okay," very humbly gets off the stage, listens, and anyway, so it's this big controversy in the church world. Like, should he
Yeah.
have gone up there? Should he have not gone up there? And there's a lot of people who are offended, but the guy obviously who put on the conference was super offended, that pastor.
Mm.
But I think that was such a missed opportunity, like such
Right.
a missed opportunity because if he would have let the guy finish, because the guy wasn't bashing anyone, he was just saying, hey, we crossed the line here and this was weird. Like,
Yeah.
and if he would have let him finish what God had put on his heart, it could have been an incredible moment of
Mm,
reconciliation in the church, the beginning of a revival. Like it
right.
was, I feel like it was a flame that was snuffed out like before its prime. Like it could have been so
Mm,
beautiful. And maybe it'll turn into that, it's still
right.
fresh. I'm hoping it turns into that. Driscoll ended up apologizing like the next day, saying that he should have gone to the pastor first. But I really don't think that he should have A, apologized, and B, I think it was right for him to do it in front of all of these
Yeah.
people, because otherwise it would have just been a silent thing and would have
Right.
been the church going to repentance. I'm sorry for making your house a den of thieves.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why Jesus didn't go to the synagogue leader or whoever and say, hey, this isn't right for you.
Yeah.
There's a reason he braided a whip on a hilltop where everyone
And
could
made
see
it
him.
a,
Yeah, he made
yeah.
it a scene. He made a
Yeah.
scene and he went in there and he turned all the tables over. There's money flying everywhere, probably feathers everywhere. Like he made a mess of things in
Yeah.
order to set things right in a public way. So I think he does that through offense sometimes. Like he
Yeah.
will use an offense in our life, right or wrong, doesn't matter. He'll use an offense in our life to break up the hard ground in our heart, to plant a
Yeah.
seed that will bring you and your family life.
Well, anytime you like think of when you're planting a garden, right? What is it?
Till, you
Till?
got to
You
till the
till, you
ground.
break up that ground
Yeah,
so the seeds, can do what they need to do to grow.
right,
And then, you think of people that have a huge turning point in their life. Typically, it's not when things are all going perfectly, right? It's when it's like, oh, when you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up, right? There's
right.
that saying. And so a lot of
You get to
times,
choose what rock bottom is, though.
that's true.
It doesn't have to
Yes.
be the thing that you
That breaks you
death. You don't
completely.
have to die. Like,
100%. No, you don't. Not
you
at
don't have to
all.
be homeless for it to
Right.
be at rock
Exact.
bottom. Like, you
100%. It
get to
could just be a
choose.
little bit messy. It could just,
Right. It could
be an
be right
off
now.
day.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's typically in the mess. It's
Hmm.
in the mess. And the way that I think of it is, if something is not messy, if something is not broken, then where's the place for Jesus to come in and fill that gap and mend it? And
Well, Jesus will always ask you to change. Like
yeah.
he's always gonna he says, come as you are, don't stay as you are. Like the man, the wealthy man, he came to Jesus and he said, what must I do to be saved? And Jesus says, have you been following the 10 commandments, honor your mother and father, etc. And he says, yeah, I've done that since I was a kid. I've done all those things. And Jesus was like, well, why don't you sell everything that you have, give it to the poor, and come follow me? And the Bible says he went away sad. And Jesus was sad too. The Bible says Jesus was sad too because he loved this guy. He wanted this guy to follow him, but the guy chose the offense over the blessing.
Yep.
And he was probably thinking, oh, these guys are just trying to get my money. Just when I thought I found the Messiah or
Mm.
somebody good, he's just trying to get me to, you know, give all, although Jesus didn't even say, give your money to me.
No, give it to the
Yeah,
poor.
he said, sell everything you have, give the money to the poor. But, people are closely tied to their money. So
Yeah.
sometimes they hear what they want to hear and use it as an excuse to not do what God's telling them to do.
Right. Yeah. So you can either go through life choosing to just be offended all the time, and
Right,
I mean, I struggle with it, like, right, like especially with my husband, I get offended very easily, very quickly, and then I get mad, and
right,
I'm sassy.
right.
So I'm not perfect at it at all. So,
But
I
there's
think it's
also times too when, and I want to be careful with this because I feel like we lean more in one direction than the other, so we should be
hmm
more careful about allowing ourselves to be offended.
yeah,
But I think sometimes God uses us offending others to help them too. Like you can't guard what you're saying so much that you're never going to offend someone.
right.
What was that thing? If you're a friend to everyone, then
You're an
you're an
enemy to
enemy
yourself.
to yourself, right? And
Yeah,
you can't be true to yourself and be honest. And I'm not talking about, oh, I'm just speaking my truth. I'm just saying
right.
what calling it as I see it. Like that's a bad attitude. That's just a
Yes.
bad attitude.
Yeah,
But there is a point in a friendship where you do have to say the truth. Like
right.
if they're
Oh
asking you for
yeah.
advice or if you see something that's destroying your friend, pray about it and in wisdom say
hmm
the truth, even if it's going to hurt their feelings, because God can use offense to bring life into
Yeah,
people.
well, it's like anytime for me, right? I'll text you. I'm like, hey, am I overreacting on this, or is this valid, right? Because am I I taking offense to this, right? Am I
Right.
reading into this? Like our conversation yesterday, right? Like figuring out when are we going to record,
Right.
and it's just been so hectic, and you were in the midst of getting ready for
I
Jack's
was
game.
irritated, and I wasn't irritated at you. I was just annoyed in general.
Yeah, and so you literally said, I gotta go. Do not overthink this conversation. You are fine. We are good. It works. She goes, but when we hang up this phone, do not think about this conversation. I love you. We're good. Goodbye. And because you know how I am. And
Right.
so, like,
I also know that, like, there's not emojis for everything.
right,
Like, when you're talking to someone, there's no, like, smiley face,
right.
like, peace sign, like, you know what I
And if
mean?
you're dealing with someone like me that listens to tones and
I
I'm
do
hyper
too.
aware, then and part of it
Overthinking
yes.
everything.
And then part of it I'm like, okay, she's in the middle of getting ready, whatever. So as we were about to hang up the phone, I'm like, oh no, is she mad? And then at the perfect time you're like,
I
I'm
could
not
just sense
upset.
it.
You're like, we're good. Like, do not overthink this conversation. Like, we will figure it out. I'm just in the middle of 5 million things. I'm like, okay, thank you, because I was literally starting to overthink it right now. you
That was
know
awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
but
I
working
mean,
toward not being so easily
it's,
offended like
yeah.
alleviates you from having to, but I appreciate that you do that for me.
No problem. Well,
um
yeah, just I know me too because I
yeah.
literally was just like a couple like 2 weeks ago was offended by something someone I love said, and I spoke to this person about it, and they didn't respond at all like I thought they were going to respond. It wasn't
Mm.
like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I hurt your feelings, poor baby." It was like, "Okay, get over it. There's more important things to worry about." No, because this conversation is taking place over text. No emojis, no like little huggy smiley face, heart, whatever. It was just like, get over it. That's it. There's more important business to attend to. Anyway, so I had a moment where I could have chosen to like be furious,
Mm,
or it could have been like, you know what? It really isn't important at all. Like, I'm just
right.
gonna let it go. Like, what's her name says, let it go, let it go.
Elsa,
Yeah, that's Elsa.
the snow
I almost said
was
Ursula.
white
That's
on
not
the
what Ursula
mountain
says.
night. No, Ursula says, poor unfortunate soul.
Oh yeah, poor unfortunate souls.
Yeah, so sad. We literally bust out into a Disney song at
I know.
least
That's funny. I
every
was
other
just thinking of
podcast.
that the Prince of Egypt song. You're playing with the big boys now.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard? Did you watch that one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. That's one of my favorites. I don't know why that reminds me of
We just
Ursula.
recently rewatched Prince of Egypt recently.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's a cinematic masterpiece, honestly.
Speaking
They
of,
did a good
yeah,
job.
offense. I mean, this dude gets sold into slavery by his brothers who just beat him up, and then he
Moses?
gets Prince of Egypt. Oh no, yeah, I'm thinking of the
Joseph.
Miracle Child. I am the Miracle Child. Sorry,
Yeah.
my ADD is like spazzing out on me right now.
It's because you didn't get a Red Bull.
That might be it. Yeah. No, honestly, if I got a Red Bull, it probably would have been worse. But Jack was up late last night. The
Mm.
stomach bug. I already told you that, I think. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. Joseph gets sold into slavery after being beat up by his brothers, and then gets
Thrown in a
accused of
well.
rape
Yep. Because he
and thrown in
wouldn't.
prison. Yeah, because he wouldn't get with her. He got thrown into prison for rape. And then he was kind of forgotten, and then he was elevated to being the second in command over all of Egypt and saved thousands and thousands of people from dying.
Yep.
And if he would have chosen to be offended,
None
he
of that
could
would
have,
happen.
yeah, Potiphar's wife would have been, could have been like, I deserve this. Like,
Right?
I tried trusting God and doing that whole thing, and I ended up getting
Look
beat
at where
up
I
by the ones
am.
who were supposed to love me. I deserve this hot chick. Because Potiphar's wife was hot, guys. She was smoking. This guy was rich, so she looked good. And he could have easily just been with her and been her little side piece, and probably would have been treated really well for it, but he chose the righteous path,
Yeah.
and um
Then got,
thrown into prison. And
yeah,
he could have been like, okay, that's it. I'm seriously
right.
done with being,
The
the
right
good one.
way.
But instead, he pressed in harder, and he's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be the best prisoner that this place has ever seen. And he
yeah.
was. He was like elevated to like lead prisoner. I didn't even know that was a thing, but
Huh.
apparently it's a thing because he became lead prisoner. And, but he didn't die there, because he chose the blessing over the offense.
Right. That's really the whole point for today. Is like you can either choose the blessing or you can choose to be offended.
Yeah.
What is it gonna be? You're taking us down a closed
Driving
road
into
there,
the
chick? What are we?
desert.
I mean, I have different drive modes on here.
Sorry. I'm
No,
going
you're fine, but I'm
off-roading.
like, it says road closed. I'm like, oh, okay. We're just breaking the law, breaking the law.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I don't even know where we are anymore.
Really? I don't either. You live out here.
We're on Hunt Highway. Okay, I know how to get to where I would know where I am from
I
here.
love the roads out here. I mean, it's such a
Isn't it
nice
so
drive.
pretty?
It's so
What
pretty.
even is that? Is that a school?
That yeah, it says it's a high school. It's a leadership academy. It said.
Oh,
I know. It
that's like
looks
nice.
legit.
Like
Yeah,
in
it
the
is.
middle of nowhere, though. Like who goes to that school?
You know, great question. Because I thought the same thing too. I'm like, well, they're probably building up out here,
Oh yeah, they're building like crazy over here.
which is
Really,
insane.
look at those mountains. Like they're so,
So pretty.
pretty.
Is that superstition?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's lost treasure. They say in the Lost
I
Dutchman.
know.
What if we found it?
Eh,
I know.
too
I'm
much
not gonna
work.
go out there.
I don't like. I don't like hiking in the desert. I do like hiking, just
Not in the desert.
in the
No.
desert.
Get me up
No
to the
shade.
mountain, like into the pines.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that place Jaden took me to.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there a few times now. Fossil Creek.
Yeah.
Ah, it's so beautiful.
I want to do that hike.
Oh, you need to come. There's like cliff jumping. The water's so nice.
I'll just
It was
wait
like
till I'm 9 months pregnant, just
and
jump
then
off the
just go
cliff.
into labor over
Yeah.
there. I'll bring some like
Ah!
gloves and stuff
Perfect.
and scissors to cut the umbilical cord. I'll be like Edward, like
She's your teeth.
in Twilight. Yeah. You know, same
Sorry,
wavelength.
that is
Yeah.
so gross. Cut that out.
Oh no, definitely leave that in. That was special.
See, she could have either been offended or feel blessed that I would ask her to cut the umbilical cord
Yeah,
with
see,
her
I'm
teeth.
definitely not offended. I'm not gonna do it, but I'm not offended that you asked. Bring some salt, sprinkle some salt on that sucker.
Gross. Oh, that is so gross. Could you imagine? I was scrolling Facebook and there's like the video of this dog giving birth, and I don't know why I stopped and I watched it. It was interesting, I guess. But like literally, like I'm so thankful that we do not aftercare our children like animals do. Like it was like eating the sack and then
Yeah,
licking
I
it.
watched my dog eat the sack that her
Yes.
baby came out in.
And then they chew the umbilical.
Oh.
No thanks. Ugh.
Oh
No.
yeah, that is some
That's
nasty.
foul.
And they do it because it's nutritious. Like they say the placenta or whatever has
Yeah.
so many vitamins.
I think
and,
my
like,
friend saved her
nutrients.
placenta and did like the
Gosh,
supplements.
mine looked like an alien. Like
I
it
didn't even
was
get to
so
see mine.
gross. Like I saw one. I saw the one that Jude came out with, and it was the most disgusting bag of blob that
I
I've ever
bet.
seen. It was like veins. Ugh. Like sorry.
I had the C-section, so I didn't get to see my placenta.
Well, just tell them, hey, can I see my placenta?
Right.
Because you're awake during a C-section, right?
Yeah.
So you could just be like, bring that sucker over here. Because they take that out right after, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, leave the baby. I'll look at the baby later. I want to see the placenta.
Well, they like held her up like real quick, and she was stuck for a hot minute. Because I pushed for like 2.5 hours, and she was not coming out. And so her head was like all swollen, and then like for a minute she like wasn't crying. And I'm like looking at my mom because Mike does not do well in hospital settings. So my mom came back with me when I got the C-section. The C-section room, Mike waited for us in the birthing room. Like he didn't come back with me when I was getting the C-section. He was like, I would have passed out, and it's not about me, it's about you.
Yeah, right.
So I'm like looking at my mom. I'm like, Mom, she's not crying. She's not crying. And Mom's like, it's okay. She will. Just, it's okay, you know? So maybe this time, like while they're getting them to breathe, you know, I'll just be like, let me see that placenta.
Oh my gosh. You should totally do it. That would be hilarious.
That'd be embarrassing for my life.
My cousin, well, I was going to say my cousin, but they're actually both my cousins and they're married to each other, which is weird, but they're not related to each other. I'm white, but I'm not that white. I'm just kidding. Some redneck stuff. But they're both my cousins, but they're related to me on, like, one's related to my mom and one's related to my dad. So they're not related to each other.
Right.
If that makes sense. Anyway.
Just by marriage.
Yeah. So my cousin, girl cousin, was in labor, and my guy cousin, her husband, he, that's so weird. He gets a kidney stone while she's pushing and like passes out and ends up being hospitalized for a week. Like, I'd be like, you're so selfish. Couldn't that have waited? Like,
it's like the movie Beaches. You ever see Beaches with Bette Midler?
I don't. I was just. I don't know.
They're like best friends from when they were little.
I've
it's
heard of it.
one of my mom's favorite movies.
Yeah.
and they're best friends, and so she's having her baby, and then Bette Midler literally passes out, and she was like a famous singer in the movie and also in real life. But then all of the nurses and staff like went to her and like left her friend that was literally in active labor. She's like, "Oh my god!"
Like, seriously?
Yeah,
That is so funny.
literally. But life's too short to just stay in a fence. So
Yeah, see, my cousin could have been offended that her husband got a kidney stone
right.
or
Or being thankful and blessed that
happy.
they were at the
Yeah.
place where he could get the proper care needed as he passed out.
Ooh,
And she wasn't at
nice.
home going into labor.
Yeah.
And then how does she get to the hospital? They were in the right place for the right
Right
treatment.
time. Oh, boom. Yeah. See?
Boom.
Night it comes together. We didn't even have to plan that. It's not even in our notes, guys.
Nope, not.